Proper maintenance of your STRIEBIG machine will keep it running like the day it was new for many, many years. And it's really very, very simple. It's not a complicated maintenance schedule. Really, the first thing that you want to do on a daily basis is clean the machine off, take any off-falls, cuts, and throw them away. Take some air and lightly blow off the dust off the machine. The next most important function to be done, the most important job to be done on a weekly basis is to oil the machined guideways on the saw. And there are 3 sets on the beam, on the left, in the center, and the right, and the top rail of the frame. And we just use motor oil, 20 or 30 weight motor oil on a rag. We're going to wipe the machined surfaces on the beam. The oil preserves the metal, the bare metal, and it also allows the dust scrapers or wipers to do their function properly and work smoothly on the rails. They will keep the dust out of the way, so we don't worry about the fact that oil may collect dust. The scrapers or wipers are going to keep the dust out of the path of the bearings. We also want to wipe the top rail of the frame with the oily rag. Again, this is a once a week function in a normal woodworking operation. If you've got extreme dust like solid surface or fiberglass dust, you may want to, at minimum, double up this schedule. Do it at least twice a week, if not more. While you've got the rag with oil on it in your hand, it's always a good idea to wipe the guide plate for the parallel guide mechanism that guides the saw in and out, and also wipe any dust off of the main guide column that the saw goes in and out on. On a monthly basis, we want to put the saw head in a horizontal position, and using the grease gun that comes in the toolkit with your STRIEBIG, first we want to wipe off the gold cups that accept the grease, and then use 1 pump with the grease gun in each location, and that keeps the saw head moving in and out freely. This grease gun can be refilled once it's empty with a good quality yellow bearing grease. Just pack it by hand and your gun is good to go again. On a weekly basis, it's a good idea to check the function of the grid deflecting mechanism here. Some work to shift the grid upward, some work to shift the grid downward, but it always has a mechanism like this in here, and it's always a good idea to just take a little air and blow that area off and check its function to make sure that the device that acts on the story pole with the notches goes in first and then up. If that's working properly, you won't have any problems with the saw blade missing the grid. On a regular basis, daily or at least weekly, we just want to check the function of your grid to make sure it goes up and down smoothly and freely. If it doesn't, if you don't hear the grid clunk back down into position, check to make sure that there are no off-fall cuts underneath the grid. If there's any friction in the grid going up and down, we just want to examine the problem and see why that is. There is no lubrication to the grid shifting function. On a regular, probably weekly basis, we want to inspect the wipers or scrapers that surround each of the bearings, especially on the vertical beam. On the front of the beam, there are plastic wipers that can just pop right off. We just want to inspect them and make sure that they're in good working order. The two most important ones on the saw are the copper wipers that scrape the dust off of the top rail. We want to just make sure that they're riding properly and doing their job the way they should be, and that they're in place. Yep. Besides the two main bearings that ride on the top rail of the frame, the next most important bearing is the one on the bottom here, which also has a black plastic wiper scraping the dust around it. We want to, because that's a plastic coated bearing, we want to take a good look at the bearing itself to make sure it doesn't have rough edges on it or a flat spot in it, and also to inspect the wiper that surrounds it and make sure it's in place and working properly. If you have a STRIEBIG that requires air, which would be a compact automatic, an evolution or control, or a standard model with the optional pneumatic locking rollers, then you will have air coming in to the right hand side of the machine, lower down, and there will be a water reservoir that should be emptied of water on a regular basis. We don't want water in the lines. So just make sure you press the button on the bottom of the reservoir and empty the water. The maintenance schedule is in the operating manual for every STRIEBIG that was ever produced. In machines produced in the last 15 years with a big white binder like this, the user manual, it's going to be in Chapter 3, which is the operating manual, and toward the back of that operating manual will be the maintenance section, and one of the first parts of the maintenance section is a chart of jobs to be done, and that lists all of the functions that we just reviewed plus some additional ones, and it may continue on the subsequent page, but that's in essence what we just reviewed. So again, maintaining your STRIEBIG saw is a simple job. It's not complicated in any way, but it will keep your machine running like new for many, many, many years and giving you trouble-free service.